Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of my Final Fantasy II Pixel Remaster commentary. This is Loghain F for the Revenants Gaming. Anyway, so we're starting off in the town of Fynn. So, as you can see, I am actively avoiding talking to the Emperor's Knights. That's because at this stage in the game, these are basically unwinnable encounters. Like, I'm sure you could, if you pulled enough resources, beat one of them. But for one thing, hitting them's a problem. They've got a lot of health, and yeah, they're just... And plus, even if you beat one, it won't stop them from blocking your path, so you just have to walk around them. There are also random encounters in the town, which I cut out, so... and as you can see, this is an example of us using the password given to us the previous part to gain access to a secret room. So here we're going to be meeting up with Gordon's brother Scott, who is also head over heels for Hilda. So yeah, this is actually, as you can see, this is when Final Fantasy II, another one of the key features, is character deaths. Because in the first game, well, since the plot was very much point A to point B, there wasn't a lot of emotional investment because nobody really died. So it was a very, very safe story. Anyway, tell Hilda that I love her. And yeah. Yeah, and here Scott's gonna give us his ring. Alright, so now we're going to be making a trek back to Altair to give a message to Hilda and Minwu. Oh, and Gordon too, of course, because, you know, Gordon's whole character arc, which I personally feel like the character arc could have been handled better, but it's a relatively early RPG, so I don't fault it too much. So yeah, we're going back to so Gordon's arc basically is he's a coward. He's a very cowardly character. So it's basically the arc is about him finding his own courage to, you know, fight and take up responsibility as a prince and one of the leaders of the rebellion. It's a neat idea, but it could have been handled better. Oh yeah, and as you can see, I briefly stopped in Patria, I think that was Gatria, as it was called, and just to heal. So anyway, so yeah, now we're back, and it could have been handled better, but early Final Fantasy games, they were very experimental. You know, I think I mentioned in my commentary for the first Final Fantasy that when the creator of the series kept trying so hard to pitch it to a certain magazine, the magazine author basically said that the Final Fantasy stories were that up until like from 1 to 3 were garbage, so of course he wasn't going to feature them. His words, not mine. I think I judge them for the context of the time. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah. And here we're about something I lean more towards talking about in the first part. We're going to get our first temporary squad mate in the form of Minwu. In the form of Minwu, who is our white mage. And yeah, and I said that technically you could customize the classes, but it's kind of a... that's kind of a false choice because every character... they leaned more towards a certain thing. You know, Furiel, he leans more towards being a sword and shield white mage. The Maria leans more towards being a bow and arrow black mage. Guy leans more towards just being a straight up tank and damage dealer for melee attacks. And Minwu, as we'll see, leans more towards being just a standard white mage with stabs. So, yeah. Yeah, not too much is going to be going on this part. So, I guess as I'm going forward with this, I'll talk about. I don't even really showcase Minwu's spells, mainly because he's a temporary teammate, so I just don't really feel the need to. Oh, yeah, and as you can see, Minwu gave us the Canoe, which allows us to traverse different parts. So yeah, something I'm gonna probably mention. So this is ultimately common knowledge for people who are familiar with Final Fantasy, but might as well just talk about it. So Final Fantasy 2 and Final Fantasy 3, oh, and Final Fantasy 5 as well. They're unique in the Final Fantasy series in the sense that it took quite a while before we got their release, and outside of Japan, they were Japanese exclusives. So Square and kind of had to, when they released them, they had to sort of keep up with a lie, I guess you could say, of they had to keep, like, Final Fantasy IV in the US was called Final Fantasy II, and Final Fantasy VI was called Final Fantasy III. Well, when Final Fantasy VII was released, they just dropped it altogether and just called it Final Fantasy VII, which I imagine that would be very confusing to Western audiences who weren't in tune with magazines at the time. I was 1 year old when Final Fantasy VII came out, so obviously I couldn't be confused, but I can see how others would. So yeah. Anyway, as you can see, we're going through the town. This is where we can get more spells and armor for our white, black mages, and just attackers in general. So something I don't know, I forget if I talked about in the previous part. So armor actually does have consequences to wearing, as opposed to the previous game where it was just pretty standard stuff of, it just increases defense and evasion, all that. Whereas here, certain types of armor, like the heavier the armor, it actually impacts how effective your magic spells are. So with Guy, you just have to focus on equipping the heaviest armor, and with other physical attackers we get later, that's ultimately going to be another concern. Whereas with Firiel, Maria, and characters like Minwu, the lighter armors are better because they don't have as high a magic interference. And so yeah, just finding a good balance of that is ultimately the key for a more efficient playthrough. Anyway. So yeah, also there are spells that you might have seen as when I went into the store. I got, oh yeah, something I cut out. I cut out a lot of grinding here, because that's ultimately something that's probably going to hold me back a lot of the recordings, just doing the grinding sessions. But yeah. Another thing, so there are 3 spells we can get in this town. They're all white magic spells. So Protect, which just increases physical defense. Then there's Blink, which increases evasion. And then there's Shell, which increases resistance against magical spells. And so yeah, and obviously I'm going to give those all to Firiel. I think that's, I'm hoping I'm not butchering that name, but anyway, I'm going to give them all to him. And also Minwu, I didn't really showcase this necessarily. Minwu has almost every single white magic spell in the game. Like the temporary teammates are ultimately they're heavy hitters, or they're somewhat heavy hitters. Minwu is just the ultimate white mage at this point in the game, though. By the end, Firiel will surpass him. Will surpass him. But we just have to get to that point, which we are nowhere close to now. And also Minwu, just in general, has the most health, has highest defense. Well, not the highest damage taking, because obviously that goes to Guy, but because he can equip the heaviest armors with no real hindrance. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry there's not too much action in this part. I got so caught up in the grinding that I couldn't properly gauge how long the regular gameplay was going to be. So a lot of this is just me going through shops, and so I'm just trying to, fill in the gaps by talking. The next part, though, we will be going through our first big dungeon, so there will be more to talk about, and I will showcase more spells here. I just got so fed up with the recording that I cut out me using the spells, because honestly, it just took too much time. And also, most of the spells I couldn't use in their practical use. I was just using them to level up, because I talked about in the previous part, you level up on a very specific basis, which you can go to my previous part to tell that. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, for it will help our channel grow. And I will see y'all in the next part. This is Loghain F. Y'all have a good day.